Welcome to the Pursuit of Truth. It's raining outside badly. We're definitely coming into winter now. So I was listening to Sky News yesterday. Two stories, almost connected. Both princes, Prince William and Prince Harry. So-called princes, because that's an illusionary title that's made up that makes him seem more than what he really is, which is just a human being that was born like all the rest of us and has no actual intrinsic power more than anyone else other than the illusionary power that we believe that they have. But it's just first story was about the Sir David Attenborough ship, boat face. That's another thing. This where that the people are asked. You know, we've got this boat that's going to go out. I don't know whether it was always going to do climate change, but you know, we want you to name it. I don't know why they wanted the public to name it, because that's not the normal procedure, but they went down that route and the public picked Boatface. But because it's not a serious name, has rings of Blackadder about it, that they decided, oh no, we can't do that, we'll pick the second choice, which was Sir David Attenborough. Funny that though, it links up with his recent change to talking about climate change, which he started on his programmes, his BBC programmes, and now Netflix in the last few years. Which prince, I can't remember which prince it was, Prince William I think it was, with his wife opened, you know, threw the bottle of champagne on the ship to launch it. And meanwhile, Prince Harry is in Africa talking about vaccines. Is it vaccines he was talking about? I know he was talking about how can anyone not believe scientists. And I'm going to play you both clips, and then you can hear them. But it's just what struck me is the fact that he probably never even questioned it himself. And when you say how can you not believe scientists, you've only got to look recently in the last year, the court cases that are going on at the moment, the to do with Primados. Well, they were scientists, weren't they? And they were your NHS, and they were GPs, they were human beings who, if you'd gone to them, they would have told you, yeah, it's perfectly safe, this is. And the government, whoever you asked, and if you said, no, it's not, this happens to this child, they would have said, no. You know, and they probably play it off to that all medicines have some side effects, which they do. And that is probably where this problem is coming. It's money over side effects for these big pharmaceutical companies. Then, of course, you've got the vaginal mesh story. Then you've got the silicone boob story. Then you've got Ireland, where they were... Is it Ireland? Where they were doing the blood transfusions and they ended up giving kids... They bought blood from America that was contaminated with HIV/AIDS. So, you know, and that's just recently. I mean, I'm sure there's loads of these stories, and I'm sure there's lots of them that get hidden as well. You know, where they invent something that has too many side effects and they get rid of it. But they probably knew about these things all along. Same as where you've got in the car manufacturing business, where cars, and you see it a lot recently, where cars are recalled because of problems that they already knew about. They knew that they were unsafe. They knew that something could happen to you while you're driving. That, you know, and yet they still sold it. Oh, my goodness, have you just understood that human beings are fucking evil people sometimes, and they will do anything for money and hide anything? The tobacco industry, they fought long and hard that tobacco had nothing to do with cancer and it was healthy for you, this, that and the other. I mean, you have to be stupid to close your eyes to that's just a few things in the last, 50 years, and just the high profile ones. I'm sure there's loads of things that I'm forgetting that have been out there that, you know, just prove to you that you cannot just simply say, oh, I'm going to believe. That is not enough for any human being to be doing, ever. Because that's the way you get tricked. And here you've got a royal family who's standing up and, you know, trying to sway your mind using his influence. You know, if you've watched Steve HV's videos on logical fallacies, you'll see all these things that are being used to to, I mean, even I'm using them probably now, to make you think a certain way. But the fact is, what interested me about his statement is that he was talking about this, and in the UK, with the measles, how many people is actually killed in the UK last year? I think it was not even one person was killed, despite the rise of people not taking these jabs, you know, because that's the thing, they don't talk about the actual science behind it. Because I'm coming up to the twins' 2 years birthday, and when they'll have to have their second MMR jab, and I've read that, as far as I'm understanding, that the reason why they do the second one is because the first one doesn't always work for all children. It has like an 80%, it has 80 or 90% success rate. So the reason they give it twice is to safeguard those ones that it didn't work the first time. Whereas I would like my child to have a blood test to check their immunology and see whether it has succeeded or not, so that they don't need to take it because it's unnecessary. It's not actually a booster. It's just in case the first one didn't work, if that's the right understanding. But I know that when I do that, I'm going to make to look like the most stupid person in the world, even though all I'm doing is caring for my children, because I've heard stories of autism and bad things happening through this MMR jab by numerous mothers. You go on Mumsnet, you can find people talking about it. You can't just say they're all crazy or conspiratorial or whatever you want to use. You know, there's no smoke without fire. And you can't just dismiss them, because these are people who actually experience it. Same like the people that had problems with Primodos would have been calling the same cries, and people just said, no, that's just them or whatever. But yeah, the interesting thing about this Prince Harry is that he talks about, how can you not believe scientists and this, that, and the other, and and it's killed maybe no people, around the world. I'm sure it has killed more people, but I'm sure that's more to do with their medical abilities and to do with whether they can help these things. I don't know whether measles is a killer disease, like chickenpox. Kids get chickenpox. I'm sure in the future there'll be a vaccination. I think there is actually one for it now, and they'll be doing the same stick about, you've got to have it or they're going to die or they're going to have complications. And I'm sure there are these things, but most children just go through it. But yeah, the thing is, what I'm interested in what he said is that he doesn't realise the fact that his position, how he is, that he's an elitist. He's got all this money, and his family have got all this wealth, all this power. I mean, they could, if the Queen still had any of the power that she believes that she has, she could easily make these decisions, and because she owns the land, the actual land that we stand upon, that's meant to be for all of us. She owns it more than I think anyone else. She has that power to do that if she wanted. They're jetting around talking about climate change in their aeroplanes, but and how many people are dying of climate change currently? But how many people are dying of starvation? How many people are dying of unnecessary? There are medical things where there's medicine that does work, doesn't have side effects or many side effects, and it does work and it's good for people. How many of that is not being given out to other people, but they're being allowed to die instead in Africa and poor places like that? And yet he's sitting in his castles, his many, many, many castles. The royal family has more money, more wealth, more land than it ever really needs, if you actually look at it. Yet he doesn't understand that. He's professing about climate change, but he doesn't profess about his inequality. He doesn't care about equality, because if he cared about equality and freedom and suffering, then he wouldn't still be a prince, and his grandmother wouldn't still be a queen, because they were giving all that stuff back to everyone, and everyone would have a better life rather than just this elite, these rich people who are born into it. You can use that excuse that, I was just born into it or whatever, but at the end of the day, you have to look at yourself and what you're doing and how you're acting. You can't just use that as an excuse. You're enjoying while others are suffering, and all you're doing to make do of that is going around talking about these things and planting a fucking tree that looked like it was a dead tree in Africa. One tree that probably didn't even count for the aeroplane that he's flying around in. But he thinks now, then that makes him look like, oh, he's this good person. Hey, look, he's planting trees, he's talking about climate change. He's such a good person, this prince. Just look at all the money that they're sitting on and all the suffering that's going on while they sit on that money and wealth and power. Why don't people see all these things? Anyway, here's the Sky News broadcast that sparked this this podcast. Let me put it close so you can hear it nicely. If I can play it properly.
You're going arguing on about this issue of UK significance, yes, but really there are bigger problems than this, and that this vessel will help solve them, I hope.
It was then the Duchess of Cambridge who was almost in sync with the champagne. It is a great tribute, but it isn't the name that the public voted for. They wanted Boaty McBoatface. But rather than subvert the will of the people, that name does live on. This small yellow sub, which will launch from this vessel, is called Boaty McBoatface.
There has never been a more important moment for this ship to get to work. And there is no person more fitting for this beacon of scientific research to be named after than you, David.
There are still secrets down in Antarctica. There's ice that's over 1 million years old that we've never seen. A bigger ship means more science and more possibilities.
So it's not necessarily the size, but it's the state-of-the-art science equipment on it. So we can do new science, we can do more science, we can collect more data, and we can go to places that we could never have gone before.
New science, like they banned that word. New science, 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 science. Make sure you say the word science. If you've got nothing better to say, if you've got nothing concrete or accurate to say, just say the word science, because that covers everything. I wonder what they're going to find at this 1 million year old. It's more than a million, isn't it? This ice. They'll find the end of the earth on there. No, but they won't be telling about that.
Its first mission will be next autumn. Evidence-based science is the only way we'll understand what's really happening. Tom Parmenter, Sky News, Merseyside.
If you want, you can go back and do a drinking game where you drink every time they say the word science.
Were echoed on the other.
Sorry, missed the bit when I was talking.
Way we'll understand what's really happening. Tom Parmenter, Sky News, Merseyside.
Well, those comments from Sir David Attenborough were echoed on the other side of the world, where Prince Harry criticised world leaders for failing to tackle climate change and took a swipe at those who continue to deny the science behind it. He was speaking in Botswana, where he's helping to plant trees after decades of deforestation. Our royal correspondent Rhiannon Mills is travelling with Prince Harry and sent this report.
As royal tree plantings go, this was certainly bigger than most, as Prince Harry launched a project to bring back to life this part of Botswana's Chobe National Park by replanting trees. This summer, he has been accused of preaching on environmental issues after using private jets. It didn't stop him from wanting to send a clear message to world leaders and give his backing to teenage activist Greta Thunberg.
Science and facts that has been around for the last 30, maybe 40 years, and it's only getting stronger and stronger. I genuinely don't understand how anyone in this world, whoever we are, you, us, children, leaders, whoever it is, no one can deny science. Otherwise, we live in a very, very troubling world.
Despite the criticism, he's obviously hoping his actions do the talking on this tour, as he helped children plant their own trees with milk tins used to feed orphaned elephants. It is the wildlife that has kept him coming back to Botswana, including with his wife Meghan. This time she's back in Cape Town with Archie, as we joined Harry on an anti-poaching patrol.
The pace of this part of the trip may be just as relentless when it comes to cramming in the engagements, but it certainly feels a world away from the media scrum that we saw in Cape Town. And it is a chance for Prince Harry to really focus on those causes that matter to him in a place that is so close to his heart.
A country that he admits has given him so much, especially following the death of Princess Diana.
I had to get that one in.
I came here when I was 97, 98, straight after my mum died, so It was a nice place to get away from it all. But now I feel deeply connected to this place and to Africa.
It will be his mother's influence that will again shine through as he's now moved on to focus on the issue of landmines in Angola, a country she visited in the year that she died. Rhiannon Mills, Sky News, in Angola.
Right, so just a few things to talk about there. I suppose he is accurate in the way, sort of, when he says that if we don't have a world where science is, understood or believed, then we live in a troubling world. But what is important is the accuracy of that science, because science per se, like anything, is rubbish, is no good if it isn't accurate. And this is the issue that these people that deny science or certain issues of science, is the issue of accuracy. And we know there is a problem. Even scientists would agree in that. You only got to look, if you look at science as a thing, it's changed. There'll always be something they say, and then it'll be then updated. So science isn't something that's accurate 100% or at the time. It's a process like a river, where it will ebb and flow, and 1 minute it will be inaccurate. Like many cases you can go through, like if you go through, say, Einstein and Hawkins, there's issues where he would have said something that then he would disprove. That's how science works. So to sort of look at it like it's 100% accurate and how can you deny it, that's the issue. But I can't believe how he can't even understand that. He can't even think about that. He just wants to push his authority of how could you possibly, who are you to question science as if it is an actual thing. Science is just how we understand the world that we live within, and many times we get that wrong. And the problem is with science is often a lot of science is controlled by people with influence, with money, with power. Like these pharmaceutical companies, like Bill Gates, who wants to depopulate the world, and I think it was on David Yates' channel. I think it was David Yates' channel. It was who else could it have been? But it mentioned about there's a link between her sponsors, Greta's sponsors, and Bill Gates and George Soros. People they're always talking about. I mean, Bill Gates. I heard him myself on Sky News talk about depopulation. How can anyone talk about that? And, the reason why Prince William and Harry, they talk about Africa as if it's, as if we're meant to forget about the royal involvement in the murdering of how many Africans and the stealing of their land. And the fact that he's still going over there because the Queen is the head of state. You're still going to follow those ancient traditions that maybe should have been stuck in Game of Thrones, not we actually living in it in this day and age. But you don't want to think about that, do you? Your family's involvement in the murder of how many Indians and Africans and Middle East people, and the people that are suffered in your own country, that starve every single day while you're in your palace, that we even will, our taxpayers' money will renovate for you. I mean, that is a bigger issue. That's an issue that you could actually do something about. Go and get a fucking normal job and live like the rest of us and give all your extra money. Or even you could live a nice life. Take £1 million and give us all the other billions that you have. You could give all your family members the amount of money they would need to comfortably live. Give all the land back. Stop thinking that you own bits of land and that you're royal. There's no such thing. It's an illusion. But you won't do that, will you? You'll go on protesting about these things. And it's funny how, that it happens on the same day and they're all singing from the same hymn book. The hypocrisy is just amazing. But most people, when they see that, they won't see that because they're used to going to the palace and waving their fucking flags about these people that are not more special than the people outside. There is nothing, no difference. They all have brains, they all have eyes, they all have the same functionalities and feelings. It's just one was born into money, into power. And if they're religious people, I don't know how they're going to square that up. Are they just going to say, well, it's not my fault that I was born into this situation. It's not my fault I've got all this money in the back and all these people I can see starving every day. Let me go plant a fucking tree. That'll make the world better, won't it? Take care, easy, God bless and peace.